My guest at this time is Andrew C. McCarthy, former Chief Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. He's also the author of the brand new book, Ball of Collusion, and he's also the author a few years back of Faithless Execution, which was about building the political case for the Obama impeachment. We want to get Andy's thoughts today as House Democrats now seem to be going full steam ahead towards impeachment of President Trump. And Andy, thanks so much for being with us.
Greg, it's my pleasure.
Well, as you mentioned in that book a few years ago, Faithless Execution, you don't necessarily need a legal type of conviction to get an impeachment. Impeachment is a political process and a political consequence, not a legal one. But let's look at what we know about the president and the law as it relates to Ukraine right now. What would it take for us to learn he had broken the law? Would there have to be a quid pro quo? Would it be simply putting pressure on a foreign leader to perhaps influence an election? Would it be just having the conversation at all? What's the law actually say?
The law here is almost irrelevant, Greg, in the sense that, as you just pointed out, you don't need a criminal violation in order to have an impeachable offense. And a lot of things that are in the nature of abuse of power are not necessarily violations of the criminal code. So what I would say the Democrats will say, that what they need is something that at least comes up to the level of a quid pro quo, even if I don't think they're going to be able to prove that, because as I understand it, while Trump may have, I guess it's conceivable that Trump withheld funds in order to try to put additional pressure on the Ukrainians to open this investigation of Biden, even though both sides seem to say that there was no pressure involved. But as I understand it, they didn't reopen the investigation and they got the money. So, but, look, Gerald Ford said in 1970 when they were talking about impeaching Justice Douglas that an impeachable offense is whatever the House of Representatives says it is in some certain point in history. So if they have the votes, whether they actually objectively, constitutionally speaking, have a high crime and misdemeanor is kind of by the boards. If they can get to a majority, then they can vote it.
Are you surprised that the Democrats didn't wait for a transcript, the actual complaint or testimony from this whistleblower?
No, because I think, number one, the transcript's probably going to be disappointing for them. And number two, I think, the political dynamic here is that they're getting a lot of pressure from their base. And they were looking for something that they could hang impeachment on that was independent of Mueller. And I think they're going to decide that this is it. I don't think it's going to be a mistake for them because I don't think the country's there. I think it'll be a pretty explosive political decision that they'll regret if they go down this road. But I think they're being pushed by the hard left of the party.
Well, you might have just answered the next question, because another maxim from your other book, Faithless Execution, is don't impeach if you can't convict. And in a Republican-controlled Senate, you would still need 67 votes, which means you would need to turn, I think, 20 Republicans to actually get a conviction. Would there be anything in this particular allegation or the cumulative effect here that Democrats are starting to talk about from all these controversies that would ever get the Republicans there?
No, I don't think so. We can't say you can never say never because, look, a week ago we didn't know anything about this, right? So who knows what we'll be talking about. I was going to say next week, but who knows what we'll be talking about 2 hours from now. But no, I think if things stay the way they are, there's no chance of this going anywhere in the Senate. And what the politics of that is, I don't know. My sense is that the country is not going to like this, but at the same time, Trump is acting like his campaign is a base election. The Democrats may be acting like their campaign is a base election, and impeaching Trump is important to their base, I think, even if the country is not with them on it.
Well, in some ways, it almost looks like he's daring the Democrats to do this, which adds a dimension we haven't seen in a while. Andy, thanks very much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Greg.
Andrew C. McCarthy, former Chief Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. The new book is Ball of Collusion. The book before that, Faithless Execution. I'm Greg Columbus, reporting for Radio America.